about is being capable of being vulnerable as a man. So I almost jumped out of this presentation. I almost asked Elysia to pull me out of it because I've had a hard couple of weeks and I didn't really know how to step into this. Had a lot of personal struggles. I deal with my own mental health struggles and my own struggles in recovery, which is how I got into this journey and started having this conversation to start with. And the last few weeks have been difficult for me, specifically the last week with Veterans Day and that sort of thing coming up, Marine Corps birthday and Veterans Day. And normally it's a bit of a celebratory experience for me. But with the COVID shutdowns and that sort of thing, this entire last year, I've lost my veteran support group. I work in equine therapy. I have a lot of treatment teams that come out from the VA, a lot of people I see from the VA, and they've shut down all of their face-to-face treatment this last year. So all of my people from the VA that come out and that I see at the ranch, I have not seen. And for those of you that work in the same kind of work that I work in, service is our own recovery. We get what we receive. You know, we give it out and we get it back in spades. I keep myself healthy by being able to be out there for other people. We haven't had that. So I've missed that. And this last Veterans Day, we didn't get that face-to-face camaraderie. We didn't get that celebration. And I haven't had that in my own life. So I've missed that quite a bit. I've been in a bit of a funk and a bit of a depression, really kind of figuring out how I was going to put this together. So, you know what, Jake, why don't you come right out and with the statement, when you step up and talk to these other men, so you know what, it's okay. This is what it's about. Step in front of a bunch of other men and say, I've been in a bad place lately. And my heart's been hurting and I haven't felt like I've been able to connect with my community. Because if we can't do that with each other, who the hell are we going to do it with? So I'm going to start out with that right out. Becoming vulnerable is something that I'm safe doing today and safe stepping up publicly and saying. And that's something that actually I learned how to do through horses. And I can get into that a little bit as I talk. But I wanted to bring that up front and forward because the kind of presentation I expected to give today has been completely changed by accepting that before I start stepping out with anything else.
Julio wants to ask a question, I think, Jake, is that right?
Sure.
Julio, my friend, did you want to ask a question or were you just kind of in agreement?
No. I'm just so grateful hearing Jake. I really appreciate that, but no question for the moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio.
So, what I wanted to talk about tonight, what came up initially talking with Elysia was what does it really mean to be a man anymore? You know, I mean, I had a lot of ideas about it at one point in my life, and the older I get, the further away from an understanding of any traditional concept of what it means to be a man. I mean, I'm going to be, what is today, the 14th, the 15th, 14th. I'm going to be 50 years old in 9 days, man. I never thought I'd make it this far, but I'm going to be 50 years old in 9 days, so go me. Woo! Yeah. But what does it mean to be a man? I mean, is it as easy as having a penis? I mean, pee standing up, old enough to vote, drink a beer, have a beard, you know, father a child, hunt, fish, fix a flat, change spark plugs. What does it take in society today to be a man? And I don't think that's very clearly defined. And I don't think society draws a line for us as to what it takes to be a man. And I think because of that, we end up making up a lot of stuff for ourselves. So when I got thinking about that, I got thinking about my own journey to being a man. Not getting the early stages, but where I got here from there. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old because I didn't really have a lot of direction and I didn't know what else to do. I was a shit student in high school. Not for any lack of intelligence. I'm pretty sharp. I just didn't like school. And I didn't feel challenged. I wasn't going to go to college. I was in a household situation where I was making my parents nuts and I needed to go somewhere else. and I wasn't in a position where I was going to be self-sufficient. So I decided to enlist, and the Marine Corps challenged me. So I chose it. And I enlisted, and I went and did what I did there. And the Marine Corps is probably one of the places where you can learn a whole lot about the most negative aspects of masculinity. And that can be a conversation all into itself. But I don't really want to focus on my own story on some of this, because I got through those experiences and I learned a whole lot about toxic masculinity. I learned a whole lot about the hegemonic process of power. And I learned that it's not working, and we're all watching it not work on the 10 o'clock news every night. And we're watching our society change, and we're watching women step into positions of power, and even recently into even bigger positions of power, and rightfully so. And we're watching certain, structures of hegemonic masculinity break down, and guys aren't being handed an instruction manual on how to handle how that's happening. And everything that we've been taught about how to conduct ourselves in society and in culture is really not correct. So what do we do different? We were taught that men are the decision makers and the people in power, but now we're growing up when we're working moms in a 54% national divorce rate. We've got guys growing up with part-time fathers and no fathers at all. We got mass media and disinformation and mistrust, and we're being exposed to sex and violence everywhere. We've got people growing up in a nation that's been at war since their birth. We've got children that are enlisting in service that their fathers and mothers fought in, same wars that their fathers and mothers fought in. Men are twice as likely to be diagnosed with ADHD as women, 4 times as likely to commit suicide, 30% more likely to drop out of school, more likely to binge drink, and more likely to have substance abuse problems. We've got a generation of young, discouraged, and angry young men feeling abandoned by thousands of years of history that defined what it meant to be a real man. The strong provider in authority, the ultimate decision maker, economically, educationally, and physically and politically dominant. Yeah, I was taught that by my father. I was taught that by the generations before me, and I don't see that working in my life today. I don't see that as the icon that I'm living or working in my life. And I'm looking for feedback on that. Any other guys in this group living that in their life? Generally, so much think so. I was raised by rednecks, which is pretty interesting. My dad was pretty hardcore, Vietnam veteran. He was in the Air Force, but he was a crew chief on a KC-135, a refueling tanker. He told me a story about watching an F-4 get shot off the refueling boom of the plane he was on, the plane that he was refueling. It was pretty freaking crazy. And I have a lot of respect for all the support elements in the service too. Being a Marine myself, I recognize that all the logistics behind it, everybody that wears the uniform, their end result is to support the people in the front line. It's all about making war. So I respect his stories, but I was raised by a Vietnam veteran that had his trauma, and he was a hunter and a fisher and a provider and a mechanic, and he took care of every broken thing that ever happened in the house. I don't remember ever having a repairman in my house. And when I was 16 years old, I remember coming home from school and seeing this big blue bomber of a 1967 Impala sitting in the front yard. And 16-year-old kid with a learner's permit seeing a car that they didn't see before sitting in the front yard. Of course, I'm drawing conclusions. This has got to be my car. So I run into the house all excited. Whoa, Dad, you got me a car. He's like, what? You like my new car? Full brakes. So a little bit of conversation ensues that results in Dad opening up the garage door and handing me a toolbox and a Chilton's manual for that car. He says, it runs like shit. You can fix it, you can have it. If you can't and you need help, you want it, you owe me $500. So figured out how to fix it. Because that's what guys do. They figure out how to fix shit. That's what men do. Didn't really ask for help, didn't really fix it well, and eventually he did pitch in and give me a hand. But that was the kind of stuff I learned from my dad. I learned how to sit on the back of a boat in the middle of rolling seas and work the throttle on an outboard motor with my thumb when the cable broke to get it back into shore, because that's the kind of shit that men do. But I didn't learn how to be emotionally available. I didn't learn how to talk about my feelings. And if I had a bad day, if I got hurt and broke a tear, I got told to bitch up. Put my big boy pants on, stop crying, men don't cry. If I came home with a shiner, I wanted to know where the bruises on my knuckles were too. You don't come home with a black eye without a bruised knuckle. You give back what you get. So it served really well for my time in the Marine Corps, but it didn't serve very well for the 3 failed marriages that I had. You know, I didn't learn how to be emotionally available. I didn't learn how to talk very well to the issues that I had in my life. You know, I learned how to be a Marine pretty well, though. I learned how to function in the Marine Corps. I learned the capacity for violence that men have. You know, a lot of Marines, or a lot of men, they define their masculinity through a capacity for violence. We haven't been taught another way to do it. I remember something that I took a lot of pride in, is that my family has had a huge military history. I always knew I was going to enlist at some point in my life. There's always been a man in my family who has been in the military. It's kind of been our rite of passage in our family. So, and the Marine Corps in particular set the bar for masculinity very high, which is kind of why I chose it. It's got this rigid discipline and uncompromising concept of masculinity. And there's this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that I really love. The Marines I've seen around the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, and the lowest morals of any group of animals I have ever seen. Thank God for the United States Marine Corps. It's really not a lot, very far from the truth. When you call the Marines, you're calling somebody in to kill people. There's really not a lot behind it other than that. There's a lot of esprit de corps. There's a lot of brotherhood. Once a Marine, always a Marine. There's a lot of connection there. I love my brothers to this day, but I also recognize what we are and who we are and what we did. And it's a culture of masculinity that's hard to get past at times of my life today. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I've done a lot of jobs in my life, but I'll always be a Marine. I worked in a shipyard for luxury yachts. I've been a deckhand. I've been a mechanic. I've been a shipwright. I've been a captain for hire. I've raced sailboats. I've been a bartender, a doorman, security, a bouncer, a VIP host at a strip club on Bourbon Street. Yeah, and I've done a little bit of time. It's been one of those things that I've looked at all of that and I've gone, this is the real man identity, and none of it has served me well. And all of it has been a bit of a crash and burn. And I think I could have done a lot better a lot earlier. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had a chance to bounce back, to learn some new stuff, to take some new chances, to make some reparations. I got in a bit of trouble back in 2012, and I found myself on the floor of the Orleans Parish Prison holding cell, waking up after a very bad experience. And I look back at that, and I think of it as a psychological death. I had a major crash and burn, and I ended up pleading guilty to a domestic battery charge. It was a long time coming in a long-standing abusive relationship, and a whole lot of alcohol and cocaine and other substances involved. And I've been pushing my envelope for way too long, way too fast, way too hard, and I broke. I really never expected to live through it. I was kind of what I call doing a leaving Las Vegas. I was trying to drink myself to death. But I lived through it. And I figured that since I did, everything after that needed to change. So I started making reparations after that. I call it my karmic restitution. My psychological death and my healing had to start after that. And I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. I checked into a halfway house. I plugged in with the VA, and I started my whole process of putting my shit back together again. And that's how this whole started, and how I ended up doing this whole cast here. And like I said, I didn't know what the hell was going on with this. I had a bit of a presentation all set up, and I was going to come out and talk about this really constructive stuff that I'm doing with my career right now. But in light of what I've been struggling with in my own life, I figured it was better to come out and just talk about some, give my vomit, let you guys have it, where I've come from. Because if men can't be vulnerable with each other, then we might as well just shut up and put this stuff to bed, and we're all just talking shit and full of it. So I'm going to give it all to you guys. But I am getting through it. I'm doing well. I've called my therapist a few times. I plugged in with a new group. And I've actually a couple of times this week just straight up told my coworkers, you know what, I'm tapping out. Give me a PTO day. I'm on the salary. On PTO day, I'm backing out. Actually, all the hard work we've been putting in has been really good for the business, and occasionally we have to rely on each other for support. I could talk about that at length at a different time. How in the equine assisted psychotherapy industry, when you're in the arena with the horse and the client, the horse really doesn't know who the client is, so we have to put a lot of effort into making sure we're balanced and regulated when we're in there, and when we're dealing with our personal shit. That takes a lot of effort. But that's not why I'm here tonight. Anyhow, I'm going to take a deep breath here and catch up with where I'm at. If anybody got any questions or any comments, I'll be happy to respond. But yeah.
Deep breathing, brother. That's where the
man.
magic's at. I'm going to be sharing some stuff. Some Qigong breathing. It is amazing. It's so simple that a 5-year-old can do it, and so easy that somebody that's 95 can do it. But it's made a world of difference in my life in the past 5 years. World of difference.
I've been fascinated by some stuff that you brought up about the Qigong without the arms, because horses don't have arms, so the physical
Horses don't have arms.
make a difference. So that actually has really struck me as something to look at, because I go into that when I'm with my own work with the rescue horses. Is horses don't speak English, so talking to them doesn't make much of a difference. As far as verbalizing, if I'm verbalizing for myself, not for them. And if I'm gesturing with my arms, I'm gesturing for myself, not for them.
Yeah. Horses breathe. They have huge lungs.
Yes, sir.
Huge lungs.
Yeah.
And they really like sweet potato fries. I found that out. So, yeah, they like to eat too. But sweet potato fries are magic. Absolute magic.
The two in my background are my yin and yang, and the two biggest influences in my own recovery.
Amen. I was going to say, $4 a day in hay is way cheaper than the best therapists in the world.
Fucking A, bro.
They are incredible. So I'm going to shut my mic up. But brother, I'm with you. A lot of respect.
Right on. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jake, I'm not sure if you saw James's really beautiful post for you, but if you haven't, maybe take a minute to read that. I think you and James, I'm sure you've got a lot of experience. You do a lot of beautiful things with youth, and feel like you and Jake could have great conversation.
Right on. Give me 2 seconds to open my back door before my dog starts barking at me.
I thought that was
Stand by.
Jake has chickens, and he loves his chickens. He has a very special relationship with his chickens. That's like his meditation time, he tells me.
Oh,
I
it's
feel like he would be
ridiculous.
fine with me.
He's a chicken tender.
Yeah.
He's
Nice.
a chicken
I was
tender.
telling you about your
Yeah.
chickens, how you have your special time every night with your chickens to help like regulate. And it's not just dogs or horses. Chickens can help be therapeutic as well.
Dogs, horses, chickens, and snakes.
And feral cats. Holy cow. I tell people, you want to impress me? Try that natural horsemanship with a feral cat. How far does it go? So.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 5 kittens to bring you when I come through.
No, I've got 4 cats that are
yeah.
going home with you.
Only
man. Oh, man.
I got a question for Jake.
I appreciate the feedback, gents. Really do.
Oh, Jake, Julio has a question for you, my friend.
What we got? I don't see nothing.
Julio, just go ahead and speak up, my friend.
Here I am.
Hey, man, I see you waving.
Yeah, here I am. Okay. I just gotta try to keep it just straightforward by asking you this thing. I love what you said when you go to work with the people inside with the horses. You gotta be such aware of being in a neutral zone or being in presence. So don't bring your shit together or your own personal shit while working with horses and with people. So that means for me an amazing heart, just full of love, and that it's finding the answer to fulfill other hearts with the love that you have. That I feel it's amazing. But my question is, do you try to figure out what are the stuff of the people that want to go and work with the horses, or you prefer just to know not to not know nothing about the people and just go through and be who you truly are inside the horses with them?
That's a great question. In the treatment team, my job is the equine specialist. I'm not a mental health professional, and everything that I do with the horses is done with a 2-person team. We have a licensed mental health professional, and we have the horse professional, and I work in the capacity as the horse professional. And it has been my choice not to know the diagnosis of the client and to know as little about the client as possible when I go into the arena with the client and horses. Aside from anything that may be a risk to the horses or to the client, a safety risk, I don't want to know anything about them or their psychological diagnosis. I want to be as clean in my interpretation of them and the horse's behavior to them as the horses are, at least to the best of my ability. I want the mental health professional to do what they need to do, but I don't want to color my impression of what's going on in the relationship between the client and the horse by having an idea or preconception of their diagnosis.
That's awesome, Jake. You have facilitated some domestic violence groups.
I have. When I first got into counseling, when I first got to a point in my own recovery journey where I was like, this is something I want to do to give back. You know, I was approaching it from a perspective originally as like karmic restitution. Okay, I've ripped a lot of shit up in my life, and there's no way for me to put pieces back together in a lot of ways. So how do I do some working amends? You know, how do I take some aspects of my life and make them healthy for other people? So I look specifically at areas where I'd done some damage and how do I help address healing in those areas. And I ended up through my human services studies, getting an internship and then a counseling job with a place called the Relationship Center, counseling DUI school and domestic batterers intervention program, both for court-appointed or court-mandated clients, either court-mandated for DUI or small quantity possession charges, or court-mandated for domestic abuse, domestic violence, domestic battery, assault on a female, that kind of thing. It's a 26-week program, so I facilitated that. And what I kept running into was psychologically little boys running around in grown man suits. These 36-year-old psychological children with zero problem-solving skills, zero concepts of how to come to a resolution of a problem without violence. They were taught control. Man is always in control. And if you aren't in control of the situation, you've been emasculated. You should know what's going on. You should have the answers. You should have the solutions to any questions that come up. And most of the men that I counseled, they got in trouble when they lost control of their actions with their partners or their children or themselves, because they got in a situation where they lost control and didn't have any coping skills for the situation. They didn't have any nonviolent conflict resolution skills. They just didn't know what else to do. And they had been taught to believe that they had to maintain control at all costs. And when the only tool you've been taught to use is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And if you can't solve that problem by tapping it lightly, you're going to get a bigger hammer and hit it harder. And they learned from society that control could be maintained by force. And force equates to violence, and violence has been normalized in our society as a traditional defining characteristic of masculinity. And let's face it, a defining characteristic of masculinity is force. Men solve problems by force. Look at the movies, look at the media, look at national affairs. Look at the way we conduct ourselves in society. We solve our problems by force. We normalize violence as part of our society. We normalize violence as part of masculinity. Show me a movie that's popular on cinema. Show me a television show on Netflix that does not normalize violence. Show me a Marvel comic that does not normalize violence. It's one of the things I love about the horsemanship we practice, is that we back so far off of that normalized violence and focus so much more on developing trust and relationship rather than force, fear, and intimidation. But when we've got fathers, teachers, and coworkers that demand coherence and normalize violence, I don't think it's so much that our young men suffer from an absence of male role models. I think that we suffer from a plethora of unhealthy male role models. We've got too many of them that tell us it's okay to put your hands on to solve a problem. I think we've got too many of them that tell us it's okay to use force, to use destructive models of coping skills. I think we've got too many questions about what society expects of our young men.
Jake?
Sir.
And I think that I'm going to tie back into working with horses and keeping your hands in your pockets. The challenge is, how can you be a man and address your challenges and what's in front of you and keep your hands in your pockets? Can you find strength and courage and actual force? I could move a 1,200-pound Mustang without lifting a finger. Yet other people have been put in the hospital by that same Mustang trying to use 250 pounds worth of force. And so there is so much strength in being gentle that I believe that's the ultimate masculinity. you know. And I always go back to one of my favorite movies, Good Old Karate Kid, and it was a misnamed movie. There was truly a Mr. Miyagi, and he was a kung fu master. And he was in Okinawa. Truly, you look back, but it's the kung fu lineage, and kung fu goes back to qigong, and it is amazing how that little and the real Mr. Miyagi was not this big, huge, masculine guy, this towering 6'5", 275-pound beast. You know, your Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a small man, yet he could move mountains with his will, and that is huge. So I'm kicking it back to you, but there's just so much these horses are teaching us, that there's strength and a deep gentleness that is beyond what we all think masculinity is.
Yeah, there is. There's so much is, and I'm glad you brought that up. And that was something I wanted to get into a bit as well. Is I learned to become vulnerable from playing with horses, and it's one of the things that I've learned from Richard Knapp, who's taught me most of what I've learned about horsemanship, and is that he emphasizes we're not working with them, we're playing with them. We need to keep an attitude of playfulness when we're engaging with them, and not have that task orientation. Keep the relationship orientation when we're involved with horses. When we start getting a task orientation, we start getting a focus, then we get a focus of dominance, then we get a focus of push. You know, then we start demanding, and that changes it from relationship orientation and making it dominance oriented. Like I said, I work with a very different mindset, I guess, with horses than you do. Working with domestic rescue horses is a very different animal than Mustangs. I'm very interested in the psychological differences and the differences in herd mentality. I imagine quite a different dynamic to watch.
Yeah. Yet, you know, I'm dealing with the ones that have been traumatized by people, just like your domestic rescues have been. I think the greatest differentiation from the domestics to the wild, whether it be Mustangs or Brumbies or what have you, we, again, as humans, have bred out a lot of attributes in horses that are needed for them to thrive in the wild. You know, it's like the difference between a wolf and a dog. And yeah, you got some dogs like Malinois that are pretty close, but you know, there's a huge difference between a golden retriever and a wolf, and it's very similar. There is a huge difference between a Mustang and domestic, and it's the difference between man's meddling in their breeds versus how they've come to survive, thrive. What I always say, how they thrive in the wild. And so it's men are in that same situation. How do we get back to the roots of not only our masculinity, but our humanity? We have been so homogenized and so marginalized by the media and by just, I mean, our school systems are a joke. I'm sorry. It's just, you know, you can't let a boy be a boy. Let's medicate them. You know, you got kids that are 10 years old that are on 5 different prescriptions.
I mentioned the ADHD rate earlier. Boys are 54% more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than girls. I do not think that means that boys are 54% more likely to have ADHD than girls. I think that, exactly like you illustrate, more likely to be diagnosed with, because little boys should not be expected to sit still in a classroom.
Yeah, what happened to PE and sports and physical, you know, let boys be boys. Heck, let girls be girls. Girls
Are
want to
you
play and
familiar
run
with
around on the jungle gyms and everything else.
I think about
You
the
know?
theory of multiple intelligences. Rather than just like Wechsler's IQ test, the theory of multiple intelligence is that we have kinetic intelligence and empathic intelligence and physical intelligence and mathematical intelligence. We have these different phases of intelligence that not everybody's intelligence is based on regurgitating information that they've been fed. But some people just are very aware of where their body is in space and time, which are our gymnasts and our athletes. Other people are very connected to the plant world, the mineral world, the animal world. These are just different ways that people think and people feel and people react. And we all shouldn't be judged by the same standard or therefore educated by the same standard. So yes, total agreement that our education system is a joke and that it tries to provide a cookie cutter provision for everybody. That doesn't.
Yeah. Amen. I think there is a saying that a fish is deemed a failure because it can't climb a tree. There's
Exactly. If you judge
you're giving the fish the wrong test. That's like judging me a failure because I can't swim. It's like what is the test leading to? It's leading to more funding for more schools is what it's leading to. Yet we've got just a mess because we got people that have learned to pass the test, but they haven't learned to think creatively and constructively.
Facts. I think part of specifically for men, part of young men, boys coming into being men, and part of the education is that there's no clear understanding of what it means to become a man. In our society, we don't have a clear rite of passage. And I was looking at some other cultures and what it means to have a clear rite of passage, and looking back at some of the more less developed. And I hesitate to call our cultures more civilized, because I think in that becoming more technologically developed, we've lost a lot of civilization. If you look at American culture right now, to call us civilized would be very, very, very far from accurate. But we're more developed. We're more technologically advanced, but not necessarily civilized. So looking at some other cultures, I'm looking at Kenya, the Bukusu tribe in Western Kenya. They have a rite of passage, and young boys decide when they're going to go through their rite of passage on their own. They look at what their culture demands of them and they decide, I'm ready. So you might be 16 years old when you decide, late teenage, or you might be as young as 10. And before they decide to do it, they're an asmundi, which is an uncircumcised boy. And afterwards, they're the kusu, which is a man. And they're treated like a boy by their society. They don't have the rights of a man. They're very definitively a boy in their society. And so when they go through their process of rite of passage, it's a multi-day event. And they go through these endurance tests, and they're humiliated. And they go through some ritual abuse. They get called names, they get challenged, they get slapped by the elders, they're denied sleep, they get shit thrown on them, they dance till exhaustion, they just go through a bunch of shit because, a rite of passage demands some physical challenge to it, cross a barrier, reach some kind of a plateau. But at the same time, as they cross these different plateaus, people in their tribe are giving them gifts, property and cows and things that they can use, and they're being counseled by their elders. They're being taught what it means to be a man. They're being given moral guidance. They're being taught how to hunt. They're being taught how to value and respect women in their society. They're being given practical advice, and and once all of this has been done, they're ritually circumcised, which is kind of brutal in front of their whole tribe. And I don't think that I'd be really down with that. But, you got to do what you got to do. but then they're a man in their society. And at that point, the switch flips. And they're considered a man by their society. And there's no longer that gray area. You know, there's not that you're kind of this, you're kind of that. You're expected to adhere to the standards of a man in your society, but you're also not treated like a boy in your society any longer. You know, we don't have that. We don't have that any longer. And because we don't have that, we make this shit up as we go along. A lot of guys make this up as we go along, and we make it up in some fucked up ways. So some of the ways we make it up is we have kids. So we have kids having kids. We have kids in high school having kids. We have kids that have not jack shit else going on in their life, working at McDonald's, got a couple of little minor weed charges pending, got a 16-year-old girlfriend that's going to get her GED. You know, we have this happening in our society. We have guys that are jumping into the military because, you know what, they don't have anything else going on. We have a society at war. Nobody in their right mind is jumping into the service for any really prideful, patriotic reasons at this point in time. And this is coming from a Marine Corps veteran. We're not really selling it as a national pride issue these days. People are going in because they don't have anywhere else to go. And we're selling it to the lowest common denominator. We're selling it to people that don't have an economic chance to really get somewhere else. We're not selling it to our best and our brightest.
Yeah, I think we've really lost our national pride, and it's been a slow downhill slide. It's not like it, but I don't know. I'm 54 years old, so I'm speaking as a 50 or 54-year-old man. I wish we had 2 years of civil service for it. Start at 16. Maybe you were just a high school screw up, or maybe you're just not. My brother went to the Army because high school didn't challenge him. He was a D- student in high school. He went to the Army. 42 years, they finally kicked him out three months shy of his 60th birthday because he was a Green Beret. They found one reason after another to keep him in. But he also graduated magna cum laude from the University of Wyoming. So here's a D- student that dropped out of high school to go fight in the Vietnam War, who then after the Vietnam War got his GED through the Army, and then he went on to the University of Wyoming and graduated magna cum laude. And it's just like there's finding where people fit, and my brother fit in the Army. Mm-hmm. But there was, and he was, you know, he came back from Vietnam and he was spit on and pissed on at the San Francisco airport and all of that, called baby killer and all of that stuff. But yet it was the Army that helped him. And I'm not saying everybody should go in and serve 2 years in the Army or the Marines or the Air Force or whatever, but there's Peace Corps and there's Job Corps and there's so many other organizations out there that, man, I think it would do our young folks a world of good. Or maybe they just picked up a trade, be it plumbing or heating and air conditioning or a skill, so that when they did, you got out of high school, you got your high school degree, and you've got a skill that can support you and your family. And if you gave 2 years to the country to get that, yay, everybody wins. But who am I? I'm just a 54-year-old man.
Those are really basically the three acceptable options coming out of a high school right now are go to college, go to trade, some form of a trade, be it go into a trade, school into a trade. And we are severely lacking in apprenticeship opportunities, which is completely a whole nother aspect that we have lost in American culture, in culture entirely. We have emphasized higher education so much that we've entirely lost the aspect of apprenticeship. Trade school is great, but it's not learning a trade at the hands of a journeyman's tutelage. Yeah. That's a completely different thing. There's nothing they can teach you at trade school that you can't learn working with men who have worked in that trade, or men or women. And I don't, but this is a men's summit, so fuck it, I'm saying men. You know, there's nothing that a man can't learn, that a boy can't learn, or a young man can't learn at the hands of, of tutelage of another man. I learned everything that I learned at shipyards, not from a school, but learning at the hands of other men. And I've sailed boats from the frickin' Fort Lauderdale across the west end of Cuba down to the damn Montego Bay, Jamaica, because I learned it from other men on the water learning how to sail. It's it's one of those things that stuff is lost. So you go to college, you learn a trade, or you join the military. Those are really the three acceptable options. There are other options out there. You plug in with an element that works outside the law. I actually had a kid in one of our at-risk youth programs that in his initial interview straight up told me, 8-year-old kid, I'm gonna freaking become a gangster and go to prison, because that's where he was going to get his street cred. That's who he wanted to be. He wanted to go to prison to get his street cred to be a gangster at 8 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. I venture to say that I have been an apprentice under about 48 different Mustangs for the past 6 years. And I'm, I'm 54. I'm not 24 anymore, or 34. And I'm looking for finding some apprentices in the 20-year-old range, because if I take care of myself, I probably got a good 20, 25 years left. I can work with horses. I can probably still work with horses into my 80s, but I don't know if I want to be throwing hay to 20 horses when I'm 75 years old. I'd like to have.
It's not the horses that hurt; it's the upkeep that hurts.
Yeah, it's the achy bones and all of that. But it's like I would love to apprentice one or two. I'm I think you're probably in that same boat. If you could change or mold the life of a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old that's lost in the system.
Gentlemen, this is a fantastic conversation. And Jake, I so appreciate your vulnerability and your authenticity and everything that you have brought to the table this evening. I believe it had a very deep effect on many. I can definitely speak for myself on that. And we are at time. And so we are coming to our close with our last session with Calvin. And then we'll be closing out the day with Brett D. Scott, who is a freedom coach in Australia, one of my favorite continents. And he's worked with Jack Canfield and Bob Proctor, and he's going to tell you a bit about his story and how to change some old patterns and belief systems that may not be serving you any longer.
Brett, I'm looking forward to hearing you speak here in a little bit. Jake and George, thank you for the dialogue that you shared in terms of the deep-rooted struggles of masculinity, especially in these days and times. Jake, we had talked about this earlier, but also dealing with the fear that when a man gets angry, that all of a sudden it's just going to automatically lead to violence. That's not always the case. There's actually, that's not the conclusion that usually happens that you see in like regular movies. He just got mad, so he's got to kill everybody in the room. It doesn't have to happen that way. So
yeah, man. No, I really want to explore that conversation at a later time as well, because that, especially from a veteran perspective, a Marine Corps veteran perspective, I get that response from people that as soon as I go from somewhere other than passive, it's that, whoa, here it goes. I'm like, come on, man. I'm allowed to exhibit a little bit of other than Zen energy.
Right.
It's not going to be something nasty coming out at somebody. I can be a passionate and excitable person,
right,
without it being an angry and aggressive thing.
Right.
I'm looking forward to that conversation, Calvin. I really am, brother.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And then with that, last thing that we're going to be doing today. Let's go ahead.
I'm gonna move now too. I'm gonna do it.
All right, let's stand up.
Ugh.
So the biggest muscles on our body are quadricep muscles, okay? So those need stretching more often than not. So what I usually do is that you can either use a chair or a wall, or if you have good balance, you can balance on one leg. But I usually bring my foot up behind me. I put my knees together, and then I push my hips forward. And there's a good stretch on my quadricep muscle, so that way I can have it release, because it is so tight from time to time from doing all types of other things that I do throughout the day. So this is a nice one just to be able to use, to help loosen up this muscle. You also want to make sure that your IT band, which is the big band that goes from your hip socket down to your knee, can also loosen as well. That one is, if it's too tight, almost like a violin string, cause massive problems as far as your body alignment, your hips being out of place, and a whole bunch of other issues as well. So again, pushing hips forward, getting a good stretch in your quadricep muscles, and then switching and doing the same thing with the opposite leg, getting a good stretch. Good. Making sure to breathe, and every time you breathe in, you exhale, you want to release that tension.
Oh, man.
You're doing well. Excellent job. All right. And then last but not least, all right, if you've ever been to Japan, I love the sumo wrestlers because they are just amazing to me. So what I usually do is I'll widen out my stance. I'll sit down, opening it up, just like this, widen it out. I'll put my forearms on the inside of my knees, and I'll try and open up my legs to be able to get as much of my inner abductor muscles stretched out as much as possible, because you want to open that up. Again, things that would happen to tighten up when we're sitting down are these inner leg muscles that you want to make sure to open up and stretch. All right? All right. So with that, we're going to do a combination for today, and then we will be done, okay? So the combination is knee, kick, side. Working the brain, all right? 5 on each side, okay? So knee, kick, side, okay? 5 of those. Knee, kick, side. That's 2. Knee, kick, side. That's 3. Knee, kick, side. 4. Knee, kick, side. 5. Switching up. Knee, kick, side. 1. Knee, kick, side. 2. Knee, kick, side. 3. Knee, kick, side. 4. Knee, kick, side, and 5. Booyah! Good job, everybody. Working that body out, stretching it out, doing some exercises. Woo! Pumping, breathing. Good job. Excellent.
Alvin, for an entire day's worth of exercises.
You're so very welcome.
Oh. I'll vulnerably admit that I think that's the most exercise I've done in like 5 weeks. The entire day's worth. Woo! Gotta start somewhere, folks. Don't be ashamed. 1% better every day. You just picked your category, that's all.
That's right. That's right. And you started. That's the most important thing. You started.
All right. We have the one, the only, Brett D. Scott, otherwise known as Superman.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Elysia, for putting this together. I didn't get to watch everyone's talk, but I'm looking forward to doing the replay. And, you know, truly grateful that you said, hey, how about you come and share not only my story, but hopefully give some people some valuable tools that will help them have breakthroughs. I loved how Carlos started it and basically said, today could be the day. And if today's not the day, maybe tomorrow is the day. But this weekend, if you allow yourself to be open, you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow yourself to be like, get your pen, get your paper, take some notes. You know, hopefully I'm going to deliver something that will help. And you might think, why the hell is this guy wearing a shirt and tie? It's hot here, by the way. You guys, I know you're in cold climates, right? It is, I can't think of the Fahrenheit change, but if you know what 33 degrees is in Celsius, I don't know, it might be 150 Fahrenheit. I don't know. It's hot. But anyway, this might explain why I am in this shirt and tie.
91 degrees Fahrenheit.
21.
Oh my gosh.
All right. I wanted to make an entrance and
Did that.
I think I've achieved that goal. And look, as much as that's theatrical, I want you to know why people call me Superman. You know, and I like to think of myself as my version of Superman. I like to think that everyone has the ability to be Superman. And I think Orson said, Superman. I think, hey, Sohan. I think Orson said, you know, whether you want to be Batman, whether you want to be Superman, whether you want to be the Flash, don't be the Flash in the bedroom, whether you want to be, whatever you want to be, you know. And the point is with superheroes, like, you know, someone, I think it was, I don't know if it was Jake, but someone was mentioning when we grow up as kids, I think it was Jake, yeah. When we grow up as kids, you know, we get to that point where we don't have that ritual, we don't have that becoming a man moment. And, you know, we go to being a father. I always imagine, by the way, I'm going right off topic. I've got a whole PowerPoint session ready for you, right? Doesn't matter. I'm going to, like Carlos said, I'm going to come from the heart. Yeah, write a passage. I'm going to come from the heart. I'm going to deliver something that I think will make a lot of sense. So growing up, I had an amazing mother, and she's done an awesome job. But I was a boy for a very long time. In fact, 39 years, I was a boy right before I became a dad. Thank God. You might say, thank God. But, you know, there's a lot of buts in there. What I'm trying to get at is we all have those moments growing up as boys where, you know, if we don't have the guidance, or some of us even have had the guidance, and we just, there's something which is, and I'm going to dig into it a bit, because obviously, as Elysia brought up, my specialty is mindset, is understanding how the mind works. So I'm going to give you some insights which will help you. So as I said, make sure you have a pen and paper so that we can actually take some notes. And I'll explain how you can become your own superhero. So can I share the screen? I'll just share. No, I share one. No,
Yeah,
maybe.
I have to make you the host with the most.
And look, by the way, when I say I'm going to share something, I'm not going to just go through slide after slide. I've got a whole thing ready just in case, but I'm just going to share a couple of things.
It's all you, man. You're the host now.
Okay.
If anybody wants
All
to,
right.
you have to hit the button though.
All right. Let's hope I share the right thing. Okay. You see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. Slideshow. play from current slide. All right. Yes, that is me. Same t-shirt. I did wash it. Now, this session, what I'm hoping you're going to do is get the ability to become your own superhero. You know, Carlos, as I said before, opened up by saying, today, maybe tomorrow is going to be the day where one of these speakers, maybe it's me, will help you to have that understanding about what that is for you. I like to call myself the late bloomer thought leader. And you might go, what the hell is a late bloomer thought leader? Why I call myself the late bloomer thought leader, I'd always been driven to succeed. In my 20s and 30s, always imagined I would be successful, always imagined I would have a lot of money and, you know, have all the things that go with it. Do they mean that to me? Do they mean the same thing to me now? No. But what I'm getting at is I got to an older age, got to the age of 43, where I really started this journey properly. And some of you might be looking at me going, oh, and that's why I didn't shave, by the way, just so, because I do look quite young. And I didn't shave. I'm going right off topic here. I didn't shave. And I thought, oh, crap, I should shave. I thought, no. Everything happens for a reason, right? Just like me going off topic a little bit. Now, what I'm going to share with you is you're going to get the understanding of not only how did I actually have the breakthroughs, and I'm going to give you a couple of stories along the way. And what I hope will happen is you will go, wow, okay, if this guy can do it, and sure, it took him 40 years, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can have these breakthroughs too. And I'm here to tell you, there is no maybe. It's 100%, you definitely will. But what you first have to do is you first have to make the decision that enough is enough. You know, some of us have to get to that frustrated point where we go through a breakdown. And I guess that's where, you know, I had this who am I set up for you. Doesn't matter. I can tell you later. But the breakdown, I think, is really important. I'm going to start there. So August of 2014, I get a phone call from my work. I was with my wife for 12 years. And we finally got ourselves to live here in Noosa, which is where I'm living right now. And it was a dream, 3 or 4 years. We had vision boards and we were, you know, committed to actually making it happen because we used to holiday here all the time, right? And we finally get here. I help her to stop working because I'm earning really good money with the work that I'm working for. And we get super fit. We're training like, you know, multiple times a day, eating really healthy. I was a lot fitter than I am right now. Although I've got fake abs on here. They're not fake, they're real underneath. There's a couple of layers. But anyway, so I get this phone call from my work and the lady on the end of the phone said, her name's Lynn. She said, hey, Brett, we've got a problem with your invoicing. She didn't sound that good, actually. She said, got a problem with invoicing. And I said, that's okay. When I get home, I will fix it up for you. And she said, no, I don't think you understand. We got a problem for the last 18 months. And it's quite extensive. And I said, okay, well, you know, what are you talking about here? And she said, it's about 50,000 that you've over invoiced. And it ended up being 60,000. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where it is like, this is the first situation where I can no longer control. And I'll emphasize why that means anything. So I hear this amount of money that I have to pay back. And that was her words, you're going to have to pay it back. And I'm thinking, how did this happen? Because it wasn't on purpose, but it happened. It was my fault. And if it was just that, like if that was the only thing that had ever happened, I probably could have dealt with it. But there was a whole lot of things behind the scenes that all of a sudden when I'm hit with this, when I actually finally accept that this is a reality, I remember thinking to myself, this is the first thing I thought. And by the way, I didn't tell you this bit. 3 months earlier, my wife and I finally, and we'd been trying a couple of years before, we finally got the great news that we were pregnant. So I'd always imagined, I think Jake mentioned about, you know, boys, you know, in high school, you know, becoming dads. I always imagined from the age of 14 or 15 being a dad, because I didn't have one. And that's maybe another part of the story I'll share. And so I, you know, finally I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to be 40 as a dad. And I was super excited, but now I've got this realization, I've got this debt. Thanks, buddy. I get this realization, I've got this debt. And, you know, I know other people that have had much bigger debts. So it's not about the money. What it is that 3 years prior, I had gone bankrupt. I didn't tell my partner, didn't tell my wife. And I'm trying not to go on different tangents with it, but let me bring it back to the point. The first thought was, how the hell am I going to get through this? I'm probably going to end up on the street. I'm probably going to be homeless. I'm probably going to be a deadbeat dad. I was spiraling, you know, downwards. And then, like my blood type, I'm B positive. I was a very positive person. So thankfully, I switched. And what the first time as an adult, I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but the first time as an adult, right? And this is why I mentioned I was a boy in my relationship, in life in general. And first time as an adult, I have tears streaming down my face. And I made two decisions. And now, sorry, what I was going to say is that was the first time as an adult that I remember crying. I remember as a kid crying. I don't remember as an adult ever having a moment where I cried. And there's a point to that as well, which I'll come to a bit further down. So the good thing that happened for me were two things I made a decision of. The first one was I never, ever want to be in this situation again. And more important to that, I never want to be this type of man again. Because see, the financial thing, the debt that I had, that wasn't the issue. That was just an effect of what was really going on underneath, right? There's a universal law of cause and effect. And I was, and probably like many of you, was always trying to treat the effects of what was going on in my outside world, not wanting to actually do any of the work on the inside. In fact, I didn't even have the awareness really of how to do it. So I made the decision I was never going to be this man again. And I also made another really big decision. And I have no idea where it came from. In fact, I kind of do, but in that moment, I had no idea where it came from. I made a decision that I need to write a book to help and this is in my mind, I don't think it now, in my mind, other stupid men to figure out how to fix their life as well. Because what had happened is, and this is where I just recently got this awareness, and is a huge thank you to, you know, Elysia saying, you know, what are you going to talk about? What are you actually going to share? And I remember growing up, especially not having a dad and not really knowing, especially at 14, 15, as I mentioned, there's a whole nother story to the things that I did or shouldn't have done, which are, you know, part of my history. And I remember thinking that I'm not a typical male, as in, you know, I wasn't, you know, getting into punch-ups, and I could relate better to women than men, or sorry, girls better than boys. And, you know, so I would wear, and you have, I didn't do it for you today. I wear a lot of floral shirts, you know, I'm about the gayest straight guy going around. But the point is, I thought I wasn't a typical male. And on the outside, maybe. On the inside, no. And when I say typical, what I mean is operating with behaviors that certainly aren't helping me to be a real man. As in a real man that is a strong leader, a strong individual that shows up and, you know, does the right thing. And it wasn't to say I was all bad. It's just to say that I was definitely, you know, like some men, saying to myself, you know, you'll figure it out. You don't need anyone to help you. Don't worry. Never asking for help. You know, and with my partner, with my relationship, I was, you know, if if I didn't want to get into arguments, or I think, oh, she doesn't need to know that because, you know, it doesn't really involve her, or, oh, she wouldn't understand that, so I won't share that. Bullshit, right? There's a lot of bullshit going on. And the first person I was bullshitting was myself. So the first thing that needed to happen, the best thing that happened for me was I had a breakdown. I had a breakdown that I could no longer control because I had many situations beforehand. That's why I mentioned it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I could no longer control the situation. And I had to actually man up. First thing I did, so for the next 4 years, by the way, I went on a real healing process. For the next 4 years, I actually repaid that debt in less than a year, continued to work for them until October of last year. And they're still good mates, Jason and Brad. And sorry, the business, by the way, is a business coaching company for the fitness industry, and amazing, amazing guys. And I'll be forever grateful to them that they, you know, chose to allow me to, you know, work it off, so to speak. But while I was doing that, you know, I got a full-time job. I was running a gym. I studied and became a personal trainer. I did group training. I did other coaching for other people. There were multiple things I did. Helped my ex to be a stay-at-home mum for the first 3 years of my son's life, you know, and I continue to do more than most ex-partners would ever do. So I went on a real healing process where I fixed a lot of the things that I wasn't prepared to take responsibility for in the past. So I started to man up. Did I actually start to break through? No. And that's why often, you know, when people say, oh, that's great, you had your breakdown, and that meant that you're on the journey of having the, you know, the breakthroughs. Not really. Not really. And why I say that is I had to get to that point where, like, things were better. Things were a lot better. There was a lot of improvement in my life, and I was definitely operating with a lot more integrity, but I was still reacting to the outside world. And this is what I want to share with you today is, I don't know if you've heard of him. If you haven't, then maybe you're not into mindset, or maybe you've been under a rock, especially if you're in the States or Canada. Bob Proctor. Now, Bob Proctor, for 60 years, has been studying and applying and teaching the philosophy of mindset and understanding how to, I was going to say change your mind. It's change your mind, but how to actually reprogram what is not working and program yourself for success. And so he's considered one of America's, probably the world's best success coaches. And Elysia mentioned Jack Canfield. I'll tell you a bit about that as we go along as well. Now, Bob Proctor, if you've seen the movie The Secret, that's where I first saw him, 2006. A mate of mine brought over a little USB stick, stuck it in the TV. And this guy first it's Rhonda, and anyway, there's a long story to that Secret movie that it blew my mind. And by the way, if you've seen the movie, you'll know that the secret isn't in the secret. That's the irony. But anyway, but it was a great movie, right? And it really opened me up and got me aware that there's something more to life than just, you know, doing a job and paying your bills and having a relationship and having kids and all that sort of stuff, which are great. But there's a lot more to it, you know. And did I really delve into it? No. And it took me 13 years to finally have the breakthrough. And the breakthrough was, oh, there you go. Thanks, Elysia. The breakthrough was that Bob, I honestly can't remember exactly what he was saying, but I was driving my car. There was an event that he does, and he does it every year, called the paradigm shift. And if you don't know what a paradigm is a multitude of habits that we build up, and it's stored in our subconscious mind. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. And it's automatic, as in once it's stored in your subconscious, these programs just operate. And that's why you might hear people calling it the unconscious part of your mind. Now, I really didn't understand it up until this point. I'd followed Bob and I'd loved all his information. I thought, oh, wow, this guy's blowing my mind. Everything he would say, it really resonated with me. But I wasn't applying anything. And when the first time I went and looked at some of his, thank you. The first time when I went and looked at one of his programs, I remember looking at it. I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience, I remember looking at the information. It was a self-study. And I was just like, what is this? Like, am I reading a foreign language? I was just like, I can't figure it out. And what happens when we get a bit overwhelmed and we don't have someone there? Well, you know, I had friends calling me, hey, do you want to go for a drink? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea because I don't know what the hell's going on here. Anyway, fast forward, as I said, back to, I didn't tell you the time, November of 2018, right? I mean, I'm finally watching a replay, and actually I wasn't watching it because I was driving the car. I'm listening to Bob, and he, if you've ever heard Bob, if you know who he is and you've heard him, when he gets inspired, he gets really loud. He starts to like yell through the phone. Well, that's what was happening for me. I'm going, what the hell's going on? I started to cry again for the second time as an adult. But this time it's positive. This time I'm actually smiling. This time I'm going, what the hell's going on? And I'm thinking, I couldn't really even remember what the hell the words were that he said, but he must have said something along the lines of, you too can live this life. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what is going on? And I heard in my head, I don't know if it was the universe or if it was my own voice, whatever it was, said, oh my God, you are going to be successful this time. And I was just like, you know, those moments where you're just feeling absolute like ecstasy joy. I'm in such a joyful feeling. I'm thinking, wow. And it was, and Bob calls it an emotional impact. I'm sure Tony has another saying for it, but whenever you have a moment where you have release, where you're actually allowing the emotion to come out and you hear something in your mind, it gets stored as a subconscious belief. You don't have to go through a repetition process like a auto-suggestion, affirmation. It's like, it's immediate. So here I am, right? I'm driving the car and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be successful. This is awesome. And then I thought, well, okay, but how do I do this? How do I get started? Right? And you might be thinking the same thing. How the hell do I get started? This guy's talking about being successful. Maybe it's my turn. Yeah, maybe it is. And I remember thinking, okay, what have I got to do? Well, I remember Bob talking about this book. Anyone seen this book before? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, right? Now I had literally this book, I had it for over 20 years sitting in my bookshelf. What do we call that? Shelf help. Not self-help, shelf help. Now, I wasn't reading the book and I'd read about maybe a chapter. Actually, maybe I hadn't even read a chapter. Maybe I got into the introduction part of it and thought, yeah, this is great. Now, I remember thinking, okay, I've got to read this book. And the first thing that hit my mind was, you're not good at reading. Now, it's not that I'm not good at reading. I can read perfectly fine, but I wasn't good at keeping my focus, keeping my attention. And there are a couple of reasons for it. Number one, well, the time that I would read my books were when I'm sitting in bed thinking I've got a bit of time, not being disturbed, I'm not working. Oh, I'm in bed, just start to read the book. And what happens when you're in bed? You get tired, don't you? That's number one. Number two, what would happen for me is I would be like, I'm reading, but then I'd start to think about something that happened during the day, or it might trigger something, or I would just be reading the whole page and I get to the end of the page and think, what did I just read? I'd forget, right? Because I just couldn't hold my attention on it. So I said, okay, well, that's an excuse. So how am I going to move around that excuse? And the first thing I said was, well, I keep seeing this thing about Audible, this Audible. And I thought, maybe I can do that. Well, before I went to Audible, I thought, well, maybe it's on YouTube. And it is. It's on YouTube. Don't have to pay anything. So I went onto YouTube and I listened to it for the first time. Listened to it in entirety. I think it's about an 8-hour listen, but I just kept going back to it and I would listen to it on my drive, like I was with the paradigm shift. And I finally had these realizations. And one of the realizations in it, it doesn't matter if you're not my age, if you're older or younger, it doesn't matter. But I remember for me, you know, thinking, okay, I'm going to be this success. One thing that Napoleon Hill said of the 500 of the most successful people that he interviewed, there's two parts I'll tell you. One part was that most of the people who had true success didn't really have it until they were in their 40s, usually between the age of 40 and 50. And here I am, 43, thinking, oh, wow, okay, maybe there's hope for me, right? And it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter what the age is. But for me, it was like that reassurance. Yeah, don't worry. It's going to happen. You just got to keep moving in that direction. Now, that was kind of the thing for me. And I'm now on the 19th round of listening to that book. I read the actual physical book as well. I don't read it like I don't read it from cover to cover. I actually read certain chapters or certain sections, and it's powerful, you know? And one of the other things that I mentioned, the second part of that, the fact that he interviewed 500 of the most successful people in the early 1900s, and that includes Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, and, you know, some of the most influential people who have created the things that we, you know, probably take for granted these days. And that was the only thing that they could all agree upon, is they all made very quick decisions and they changed their mind very slowly, if at all. And the people that he would interview that didn't have the same success, well, pretty much the opposite was true, is in they'd take a long time to make up their mind. They probably may procrastinate enough that they don't even make a decision. But if they did make the decision, they would actually change their mind very frequently, all the time. And when I heard that second part, I thought, yeah, that's me. That's me. That's what I do, right? And so I made a decision, you know, moving along. And I remember you mentioned Elysia, Jack Canfield. I'm skipping ahead here, but that's okay. When I went on Jack Canfield's show on the 18th of December in Santa Barbara, and actually because I'm in Australia, you can probably tell by the accent, and Elysia did open it up. G'day, mate. How you going? All right? Having a good day? Being from Australia, we're in the future, right? Actually, I was going to put up, I don't know if you're a fan of the 80s and Back to the Future. I was going to do something with the DeLorean, but that's maybe the next talk I get on. I'll share something about that as well. Anyway, I'm in the future. You guys, it's the 14th, but for me, it's the 15th. So it was I wasn't going to speak properly then. It was my birthday in Australia. So I'm in the States. I'm in Santa Barbara on the 18th of December. It's actually my birthday, the day that I'm on Jack Canfield's show. It's the 19th of December. So make sure you put in your diary. Remember I said get a pen and paper, write that down. I'll give you my mailing address and you can mail your gifts this year. That was a joke. Oh, actually, talking about jokes, I got some dad jokes here for you too. Maybe I'll share that as well. By the way, just so I can take a breath, because I know I'm talking and giving you a lot of information, a lot of stories. Feel free to pop in the chat, or if you're watching this later on, I'm not sure how Elysia is going to share it, but if you're watching this later on, feel free to even, you know, send me a message. If there's something that resonates with you, where you go, how did you do that? Or how did that work? Make sure you either pop it in the comments here if you're here today. But if you're not here today and you may be watching it later on, send me a message. Send me some Superman memorabilia. That's a great one. Yes, absolutely. Feel free to. James is saying, love Jack and Bob. I spoke on stage with Jack. Super guy for sure. Absolutely. Loving my stories. Thank you. Keep shining my light and sharing my love. Thank you. I really appreciate that, James. And yeah, Jack, I shouldn't be, but you know, I was kind of, I mean, it's the same with Bob. I've met Bob and Jack, but they're both very down to earth people, right? They're not egotistical. And you'd hope they wouldn't be, because they're teaching you all about this information. Get out of your ego, right? Which I'll dig into in a moment, because I've got some steps to actually help you to change. In fact, I've come up with my own idea of 6 steps that will actually help you change. And, you know, you may as well call it a recipe for transformation. And actually, I've kind of already done it, but I was going to tell you a bit about how to become a real man, right? And it doesn't mean putting on a Superman shirt and going and saving the world. What it means is, you know, this is what this whole event, I'm pretty sure, is about. And all of you guys that are here and all the speakers, like, it's about, thanks, buddy. Thanks, Sohan. It's about actually becoming a man, you know, and it sounds like such a simple thing, doesn't it? Like, you know, well, sure, you know, I'm a guy, you know, I've been given the male physical form. you know, and whether you're straight or gay doesn't matter either. The point is that, you know, there's a part to masculinity. There's a part to actually becoming a man. And it's the same on, I'm sure it's the same on going from becoming being a girl and becoming a woman, right? But this whole event, and why I actually love the fact that Elysia has taken this on her shoulders as a mission, is that how many of you, and this is why I said I got the realization, there's a quote, and I'm probably not going to say it verbatim, but there's a quote that really got me the understanding. Proper plumbing. I love it, Jake. There's a quote, which is, it's not the you that you think you are that holds you back. It's the you think you're not. And when I first heard it, I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I thought, how does that relate to me? I couldn't get it. In fact, I heard that quote 18 months prior, and I kept hearing it, thinking it's a great quote. Yeah, it's a great quote. And I thought, how does it relate to me? And then finally, when Elysia said, what are you going to talk about? And I went, oh my God, shit. I had been going through life as a typical man, a typical boy man, no, man boy, I don't know, typical guy, not showing up as a man or a leader. You can hear all the birds out there, can't you? Not showing up. I'm in a tropical oasis. You can't see it. Maybe I'll show you later on. Add me as a friend and I'll show you. But I wasn't, that quote really hit me. I went, holy shit. I had, you know, who I thought it's not who you are that holds you back. It's not the you think you are that holds you back. It's the you think you're not. Well, the person I thought I wasn't was a typical male, you know, and because I was thinking about my external, but my internal was very much that, you know, I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't communicating properly. And the biggest thing, right? And I'm sure a few of you guys are going to be sharing this. And I think Carlos did. Truthful, honesty. And, you know, it's the only way it's going to happen in your external world, like you showing up as your, you know, your authentic self, is by, first of all, saying, you know what, I got to be truthful with me. I remember going through one of Bob's programs, and there's a whole nother story to that, which I won't do. I remember when I was doing the program, it's called Thinking into Results, and I train people in it now. I remember for me, there's a lesson that you go through, and he's got some questions. And in that, it was asking me to figure out, what is my number one non-productive action, non-productive behavior, and ultimately non-productive belief that I want to change? And all of a sudden, I just saw the word truth in front of me. Now, my book, I don't know if I mentioned the name of it. I've got one book here, by the way, which is, copy, I Fly. I've got a story in this book, which is pretty cool. And I might offer some books at the end. Yeah, I might do that. But my main book, it was originally, remember I said to you, I got that idea I should write a book to help other men to figure out how to fix their pathetic lives, because that's how I felt. It's not real. That's not how I think about it now. And the original name that came to me was The Truth Will Set You Free. Now, I didn't know this at the time, and I actually had never even thought about that. And the book is now called Supercharged Freedom. Popping a bit of super there, right? Supercharged Freedom, Your Truth Will Set You Free. And because the book was then, it metamorphosed into Your Truth Will Set You Free. And now it's obviously the subheading. But the word truth, right? I didn't realize how important it was. I knew it was an issue that I had. I knew it was something that I wasn't always doing. I wasn't always being honest. I wasn't always, you know, externally, you know, offering what I should be doing. But it all starts, and this is for all of you, it all starts with you. You got to understand that if you want to have changes happening in your life, you got to do the work on yourself first. You want to have a great relationship. And there's another story to that as well. I had to stop dating because I knew. I got finally, it took me a little while, it took me a year actually. I thought, shit, it's not her, it's me. It's not her, it's me. You know, I made the decision, I got to stop dating, you know, and thank God I did, because then it allowed me to go on this journey properly. So, truth. This is what I'm saying to all of you, regardless of what your journey is, you got to be truthful with yourself, right? And now I'm going to give you the 6 steps that are going to help you to have the breakthrough. And by the way, pop in any questions and I'll certainly be happy to answer them. I'm just laughing at Jake's comments. Proper plumbing, can pee standing. I went dyslexic on you. Can pee standing. Do you know there's a little, there's a plastic, I don't know if you've seen it on Wish. There's an app called Wish, and they have these weird things that they sell on there. And there's this female apparatus if you go bushwalking, and you can put in your pants and you can pee like a man. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. What else we got? There is an event that happens in our lives where I'm going right, moving along. There is an event that happens in our lives where we truly understand when we change into a man that cements our understanding and never leaves us. Yeah, you know, and look, I remember when I finally had that breakthrough that I mentioned with Bob, where I went, oh my God, I'm going to be successful this time. One of the other first thoughts that happened in my mind was, well, that's great, but why the hell did it take me so long? Why did it take me so long? And then all of a sudden, the next thought was, well, how many other people get to an older age and probably think, I don't know, maybe this is where the life's meant to be. Maybe this is just how the cards were dealt and this is just what I got, right? No, bullshit. No, definitely not. Now I'm going to share one other thing with you now that I've got some sharing ability. This one. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Make sure you think about that. Whatever the mind can conceive, so whatever you can imagine, whatever you can think about, if you think that you would like to have something in your life and you believe it, the belief part, right? You will achieve it. You know, and for many of us, including me, the hard part of that process is that we want things to happen today. Okay, yeah, I've got the idea in my mind and I think I believe it. Where is it? You know, I thought about $1 million. I thought about it. Yep, I think I believe that, yeah, it's mine. I got that lotto ticket. Okay, what? I didn't win. You know, and we get hit going, shit, you know, like, when is this going to happen? Because what you got to understand, right? When we go on this journey of saying, you know what, I've got to change certain aspects of me to actually live a different life, things are going to happen. But remember, especially as we get older, you know, there's no such thing as time. And again, that's probably another conversation. But we get to a point in life where we've taken on, like, we've continually accepted these beliefs for a long time. And for us to reprogram and change that in our subconscious mind, then it's going to take a little bit of time. So, you know, you got to have a bit of patience, you got to have a bit of faith, and you got to make a decision that the only way I'm going to fail is when I quit. The only way I'm going to fail is when I quit. Oh, I said that, right? No, you can't see it. What would you choose to do if you knew you couldn't fail? That was on the screen and I wasn't even, there you go, synchronicity. Just seeing what I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to share this thing. This is pretty cool. Oh, not that. I'm going to share this for Elysia and then I'll just go back one step. Now, I don't know what the difference is, what hair? Anyway, that was for you, Elysia. The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. Bruce Lee, the successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus, right? What does that mean? Well, what it means is, this is why I show up as my version of Superman, right? I'm not perfect, but what I am is I am showing up. I am actually doing the work. You know, I am going through moments. I am going through moments, right? Where some of them are absolutely phenomenal. Like some of them are absolutely amazing. And some days are still a struggle. Some days you're thinking, why the hell did I make the decision that I'm going to do this? Maybe my past life was easier. No, don't go backwards, right? You're going to have moments that are going to test you, but remember, this is all part of the journey. You got to experience things that you don't like. And I like to think of, I don't know if any of you are into Abraham Hicks. You got to think of them about contrast, like negative situations or things you go through, and you think, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? It's happening for you. Just switch that mindset. It's happening for you. And when you make that switch, it happens very quickly. I've got a mouse that doesn't want to work for me. It'll switch very quickly for you. And you're then going to get the realization that, wow, okay, that's why I went through that. That's why that happened. Because now this manifestation that I've been working on for the last however many months or years has happened. You know, I don't know if I didn't mention this part, right? Because I said at the start, when I had the breakdown, when I had that big moment for me where I had this big debt, I didn't mention two parts to it. One is that it took me 6 years to get back here. I've been back here for about 4 or 5 months, and it took me 6 years, right? I didn't give up. I knew I wanted to be back here. That was when I knew that I couldn't control it, and I had to just work with what I had, and I had to, you know, I had to take responsibility. I knew I had to go back to Brisbane, and then I eventually moved slowly and got myself back here. The other part to it was that why 50,000 was such a big deal is I mentioned about going bankrupt. So I had no way of borrowing. My wife and I had some money, and I'd earned a lot more money because my wife stopped working. She was running 2 insurance businesses. We had some money. We invested in 2 businesses that hadn't yet taken off, right? So we had no business. We had no other income. And, you know, and so the point is that had to happen that way for me because I wasn't listening. But also I mentioned, you know, why did it take me so long to finally figure it out? Because you know what? I've been given a gift, that gift of, you know, that book idea that came to me, you should help other men to figure out how to get themselves back on the right track or to figure out how to fix their lives. And I like to think of it more along the lines, not about fixing anything. It's more about what I really want to do is help you to understand how you can live your version of success and freedom, whatever that is, because my version of it could be completely different to what yours is. And that's cool. Whatever it is for you, I'll show you how you can get it, you know, and that's what I do for a lot of my clients. And I've had amazing success with it. I'm just going to comment on a couple of things here. Jake's saying, unfortunately, many do not experience that event or need guidance that they do not receive in recognizing it. Yeah, I've got a saying, Jake, which is you don't need to go through a breakdown to have a breakthrough. I had the breakdown for you. So let my breakdown be the experience for you, and I'll just help you have the breakthrough. But I think most people have to be at a little bit of a frustrated point, or they're going to be at like, enough is enough. They don't have to go through that, you know, hit rock bottom. You don't have to hit rock bottom, but you do have to get to a point where you go, I'm not going to accept my excuses. And there's a part to that process. And it's the part that I mentioned before. I wasn't asking for help, right? I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I've had a lot of success in different careers. One of my careers, I was a successful real estate agent in both Victoria and here in Queensland, and in real estate sales. And this is, you probably can't see because it's see-through. One of my awards was Residential Salesperson of the Year in 2007 for the whole of Victoria. And I'll just share one little story on that, which was I was working for a company who offered me to buy into one of their other agencies, one of their other offices. And I also got offered a job as a sales manager down in a holiday location in Victoria called Mornington Peninsula. And because my whole focus in everything that I was doing was about give it to me now, I went, well, I could go and get a 6-figure salary with them, or I could spend some of my money in a business, and well, I went for the easy road, didn't I? And that's what was happening for me a lot of the time. And I like to think of it as each time I would reach a certain level of success, I'd find a way to fuck it up. Now, I didn't necessarily fuck it up, but I did make what I believe now is the wrong decision. It's the wrong choice, because I was always thinking about short-term gain. That was one of my effects. It wasn't the root cause, but it was an effect. So I was always looking to make myself feel good in a short space of time. Don't worry about the long game, you know, just, you know, be happy today, be happy today. Yes, be happy today, but also have a plan for the future. You know, we're going to get older, but, you know, when we're younger, maybe that's part of that process where we think, you know, that's a long way down the track. Comes very quick, doesn't it, guys? Some of you that my age, maybe a little bit older. So I just want to share my screen with this to show you this one thing. So I believe I've come up with 6 steps that will help you. And I'll go through them. And those are, number 1, the first thing you need to do is get the awareness of what is going on, right? And that might seem like a very simple thing. Well, it's not. But the first thing you have to do is just go, is life operating for me the way I want? And if it's not, I'll stop sharing so you can see me. If it's not, you know, you got to make a decision that I've got to find another way. And see, remember I said to you, and I'm just going to explain this very quickly, and hopefully it will hit you and make some sense. There's 2 parts to your mind. The first part, which is the part that we all operate with, you know, especially as men, we operate in this part more than most, which is we operate in our conscious mind, as in we operate with our logic. You know, I like it, I don't like it. Yes, no, right? And we're moving with what we currently know. We make decisions based on what we currently know, our history, what we've heard someone else has done. We're not working with necessarily our imagination or what could potentially be. And essentially what's happening is unconsciously, which is the subconscious part of the mind, that's the other part, there's 2 parts of the mind, conscious and subconscious. The subconscious mind operates automatically and it can only accept. And most of the time it will only accept after repetition. I'm going to get to that part. You probably saw it on the slide. Maybe you didn't actually, but I'm going to get to it. Repetition. Repetition. That's probably why you hear me saying things a couple of times, because it takes more than a couple of times for your subconscious to accept it, right? And you've got to get to that point where you're pushing out the old and accepting the new. And that first part that we need to do is get the awareness of what we're not happy with. And the easiest way to look at that is, what are the results that I'm getting in my life? Am I happy with them? Well, if I'm not happy with them, you know, it's that old saying, you know, if you, I'm just trying to remember how it goes. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's very true. It's very true. And I've been on that cycle. I remember the first thing I thought when I realized that it was a straw that broke the camel's back, I remember thinking, Brett, you've got a mental issue. Maybe I'm going to have to go and, you know, submit myself to a mental hospital. That's the kind of mental issue I thought I had, because I thought, how did I end up here? You know, 2 of my best mates, similar age, similar careers, and similar money growing up as an adult. And I thought, how did I get it so wrong? I must have a mental issue. Yes, I had a mental issue, but it's simpler than I realized. It's simpler than you may realize if you're going through a similar thing, where you just think, why do I keep making these decisions, right? So you got to get the awareness that something is not working the way you want. And then another part of it, right? The next part that I like to call the second part of this process is forgiveness. Forgiveness. You've got to go through a process. It's not just saying, you know, loosely to yourself, you know, yeah, well, I guess that happened and I've got to let it go. No, write it out. Write it out. You know, you've got to go through a process. You might even need to go and see someone and sit down with them and talk through what had happened. Because what happens for a lot of us and it sits in our subconscious unconsciously, right? That we don't forgive ourselves. I mentioned I went on a real healing process, and it happened, it's about a 4-year process until I had that proper breakthrough with Bob. And one of the things that I realized when I finally made the decision to actually invest in myself, come to a close. Okay, I'm getting close to the end. Sorry guys, I'll wrap this up. I'll go through these very quickly. And what I'd say to you actually, just before I get to the end, is if you are loving what I'm delivering and you go, you know what, maybe Brett's onto something and maybe Brett's got something, I'm more than happy to share with you what I did. If you didn't get the whole thing, because I'm trying to give you everything I've got in this hour. Okay. So forgiveness, you might need to go through a process of doing that properly. The third one is purpose and meaning, right? There's and I'll make this short. There's a speech that Albert Ian Gray delivered in the 1960s on success, or why people did things that unsuccessful people didn't want to do, in fact, didn't do. And the essence of it was that they had meaning to it. They had a purpose, had a reason why they would do the things, not because they enjoyed doing them. And that's what I'd say to you. You will do the things that you need to do in this changing part of the process if you actually find a bit of meaning. That's why whenever I meet with a new client, I say, what do you want? What do you truly want? What excites you? What truly excites you? Now let's make it really big so it scares you as well. Number 4, beliefs. I mentioned about the subconscious. I gave you a little understanding of the difference between the conscious part of our mind, which is our logic, and the subconscious, which is our, which is the part where it's automatic. We don't have to think about it. It's the program that runs without you actually thinking about it. And that's where our beliefs are stored. It's our belief part of our mind. All the beliefs are stored there. You can change them, but you've got to go through a process a lot of the time. Number 5 is decision-making and action. Decision-making and action. You've got to make better decisions. I was making shit decisions because I was procrastinating a lot of the time. And when I went on Jack Canfield's show, he said, out of everything you've done, how did, like, all the success you've had, what do you think has attributed to that? And I said, because I made a decision with myself that I needed to be better at making decisions. What do we call that? An oxymoron or something? Double entendre? I'm not sure. But yeah, had to make better decisions, right? Had to take action. You got to take inspired action. And number 6, this is crucial for all of you. I don't care whether it's me, whether it's Calvin, whether it's Elysia, whoever has been on here that you go, shit, they're blowing my mind. Like, invest in them, because that's where you're actually going to get the changes. And when I say invest in them, I was happy to get help if you're going to give me some free stuff, if you're going to just show me a few tips and then I'll be on my way. I was never investing my money in it. There's a power in it. There's a power investing in yourself. It's not just investing like paying the coach money. It's you actually going, you know what? I'm worth it. I'm going to pay for it. The return on the investment is freaking huge. So anyway, I'm going to end it there and ask for you guys to give me some more questions if you want. So what do we got? We got George is saying, I found myself being comfortable being average. It was easy. Oh, mate, I know that. Yeah. It's like, and that particular comment there, George, I remember thinking that to myself. Oh, yeah, I like the idea of having a lot of money or having a lot of success, but that's probably going to be quite hard. It's probably going to be difficult, and I'm probably going to be uncomfortable. I don't know if I want to go through that. Do you want to be uncomfortable and not living the life you want? Or do you want to be uncomfortable and living the life you want? Sounds pretty simple, but it's pretty true. Calvin's asking, do you still work in fitness training or more personal coaching these days? Yeah. I train myself still. In fact, I've got back into, because I moved back to the area that I love, I'm now back into CrossFit. That's the type of training I enjoy because it's a bit competitive and it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. And some days I think, why am I doing this? But I love it. So no, I'm not training others in fitness. It is just, I love the mind. You know, I didn't mention all the different careers. That was the about me part. And I'm not going to go through that, but I've had a lot of different careers, and fitness was the last one before mindset coaching. And every career I've had, I've enjoyed it, and I've done it because that's what I thought, you know, would be good for me. And it has been great for me. But, you know, have you ever heard that statement where if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life? I never had that feeling before. I have it now. I wake up at ridiculous times of the morning, as some of you know. You know, sometimes it's 2:45, 3:33, 4:15. Doesn't matter, I can do it, but it didn't happen like that for me. Elysia mentioned be 1% better every day. Yeah, that's what I did. That's what I'm saying to all of you. Don't take on all of this all at once. You don't have to. Don't overwhelm yourself because you'll probably do nothing. Just choose to do one thing. 5 a.m. club. Yeah, James. Mine's definitely way before 5 these days. But
both crazy.
but I do that because I found that for me, Hal Elrod, if you've ever heard of him, he has a book and a whole philosophy called Miracle Morning. And it was what I was looking for. I really wanted to have a miracle morning because it would set me up for the rest of the day. Because I would do everything I needed to do, but some days I'd be finishing at 10:30, 11 at night, and my son would want to play with me, but I said, no, I'm too busy. I'm trying to do my work. You know, that's shit. I went, no, I got to actually find a way to do this, not get out of the way, because that's what it was becoming a chore. And I thought, I don't want chores. I want to enjoy this stuff. I want to enjoy my life, you know? And so I found a way to do it. And that was to find a way to get up earlier. I can help you with that too. It's very quick too. I can make you change that very quickly if you're ready. Sohan's asking me, Brett, what part of Superman in you anchors you each day to keep the egocentric gremlins of the mind away from ruining it for you and those you love?
Beautiful.
That's a bloody awesome question. That's a great question. So let me tell you, this is what I mentioned before. You know, some days are a struggle. Some days you're thinking, how am I going to get through it? Because that, you know, that you call it gremlins. I like to think of it as the monkey mind, you know, like all little monkey chatter, all the chatter that's going on. You know, there's a better, you should do that. No, you should try this. Oh, but have you thought about this? Or maybe you can look in, like it's overwhelming. And the Superman part of me is, it's like a grounding, right? It's a grounding. It's saying, like, I found something and it was a gift, right? A gift was given to me. And some people have actually asked me, how do you figure out your purpose? Because I mentioned purpose or meaning. You don't have to figure out your purpose. If there's a purpose, like a bigger purpose, it'll find you. But the way that you can actually get more meaning to what it is you're doing, it's very simple. There's two parts to it. One part is you got to find something that you enjoy doing. And the second part is remember to enjoy the journey every single day. Like, that's why I said some days are going to be a little bit difficult, but that's where you got to ask for help. So when my mind starts to kick in and I can't get into that positive mindset and I'm having a really difficult time, I mentioned about mentor and coach. I pay for multiple mentors. How many have I got at the moment? 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 mentors that I pay to help me. So I pay them so you can be sure as hell I'm going to ask them for some help. Like, I'm having a shit time. I'm having a hard time. So I actually ask for help. And even not just my coaches, I'll reach out to my friends and say, hey, I'm having a difficult time. Can you just like listen to me? Don't have to even give me the advice. Can I just use you as a sounding board? But you got to communicate that properly, right? James is saying, Brett, can you suggest 3 favorite best personal development books for us to read? Or anyone else on the summit, please share your favorite reads, self-help, personal development, self-growth. I can definitely. I'm going to do that for you. Okay. There's a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho from Brazil. A really cool story to how he ended up getting that book. It became a huge bestseller. It didn't start off that way. It's a really amazing book. Make sure you have a read of that one. There's a book called by Robin Sharma called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Sounds weird, doesn't it? The monk who sold, what the hell's a monk driving a Ferrari for? The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's a great book. And I've already Actually, no, I'm going to switch. I'm going to say Think and Grow Rich. Yes, definitely. Think and Grow Rich is a staple. If you want to change many aspects, a book that was written in the early 1900s is still helping people have breakthroughs. But this book is my main coach, James Whitaker. Shout out to him. Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy. This is a more modern take on the 13 principles that are mentioned in that original book, that Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. James Whitaker is actually from where I am here in Queensland. He's from Brisbane, but he lives in LA. And he helped John Shin to co-produce that movie. Another one of my coaches, Brandon T. Adams, one of my newer coaches, he's in that book and in the movie. I'd probably recommend those three. What else we got? Hope that helps, James. Sohan saying, thank you, brother. Well answered. Enjoy the journey. Pay for mentors. Ask for help. Yep. That's it. I know we're at the end of my hour. Hey, end of all. And Sohan's popping in his No More Mr. Nice Guy. The Code of the Extraordinary Mind is great. Joe Dispenza. Love Happier. I haven't seen that one. Awesome, James. I want to say a huge thank you to you, Elysia. I said at the start, I'm going to say it again. Like, this event is going to blow up. It is going to be awesome. And I think this is a great way to start it. You know, some of you legends that have already spoken and some of you that are on tomorrow, I'm going to be looking forward to watching and listening and getting involved. But if anyone does need any extra help or have been inspired by what I've said, or confused because I said a lot, then reach out to me. Very easy to find. You'll see this on most of my socials, and it's Brett D. Scott. Yeah, thank you, Elysia.
Thank you, Brett.
Thanks, Calvin. Loving those exercises. That is it from me. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett, for all of your value. I really appreciate your time and your enthusiasm and your hilarious and exuberant intro. That was fantastic. And so thank you for your kind words and support, and for everyone that showed up here. I so appreciate your time and your contribution to the movement, and especially since this is our very first Global Men's Summit out of the 12 that we are committing to deep dive into over the course of the year. And we have two of our speakers here for tomorrow. So before we log off, I would love for Julio and Sohan to just take a moment, pop on, say hi, tell everybody a little bit about what you're going to be doing tomorrow, and then we will get to start at noon Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. Thank you, James. I really appreciate that. Julio, what you got for us?
Oh, that's a nice question. I don't even know.
What?
Well, surely I'm gonna be in a thing that it's called the great event of the universe ever, called the Men's Summit at 5 o'clock, my 5 o'clock.
You're 5 o'clock.
And I'm gonna be with the horses. And it really is, how do you say? They set the bar really high, saying that way. So if I was nervous about it, I don't think I'm gonna be able to take a nice dream tonight. So I really just want to talk about my journey, a whole experience about the cultural man, and talking about the sports and the horsemanship, and how does it change when you talk about the equine assisted learning, for saying just simple. Share some experience with some CEOs, corporate that I've been working, and I've been around with the horses. So I love to work with horses and leaving them what they show up. So it will be great. That's for sure.
That's awesome, Julio. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to see your presentation tomorrow with the horses. I know that you will bring tremendous value. And Sohan, my dear friend, can you pop on for a moment?
Absolutely. What's happening, people? Day one's kicker. Just got to say, amazing job by every single speaker on the panel today. Day one was an absolute blessing. Power to you guys. Thank you so much for making a difference in our lives. Thank you so much for making a difference in the people that you love and the people that love you. I just got to say, you know, I've been watching you guys from this morning, from the moment I've woken up, and it's for us in Australia, it's morning. So it's a brilliant opportunity to be woken up to, you know, things that really empower and strengthen us in the mind, body, and spirit. So thank you, each one of you that have done an amazing, amazing job. Thank you, Jake. You know what? You're contagious too. Every bit of your spirit is, and I just want to reciprocate that back to you. So ditto to you too. Tomorrow's going to be really cool. You know, I'm going to be jumping on and really speaking about why being a nice guy can be bad for business and sex. So, so we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to dig really deep. We're going to go into these three really powerful realizations that I had that have made a massive difference to my life, that have made a massive difference to our people's lives in our community and the tribe. And those three very things are the things that we're bringing to the world as we fulfill the mission of impacting 100 million families by 2029. And so, you know, you get a chance to be a part of that. And I'm so, so privileged, and I'm so honored to be part of this world's first global men's summit. Thank you, Elysia, for really putting this together and being the cause of it. It's an irony. I mean, you have a woman who's bringing men together, for having men a place, a safe environment to feel completely non-judged and create something. Well, they say behind every successful man is a woman, and a strong, successful woman. So, you know, this movement, you've done it again and you've proven it. And we're very grateful, because if it weren't for a woman, I'll tell you what, we wouldn't be on this planet. It wouldn't be for our moms. We wouldn't be around. So, hey, we've got to really respect that. And thank you so much. We're just honored to say, putting this thing is not easy, and you've done a phenomenal job putting it together. So we're looking forward to having a great day tomorrow again. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Sohan. I appreciate you to the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate your kind words, your support, you showing up for your community, and for all of us here. Obviously, you're part of your community, like family. And it's been a real honor to engage with all of the speakers over the last 4 months, to really deep dive into this, and just all the value that everybody's bringing today, tomorrow, in the future. It is just such an honor to engage with such incredible, heartfelt men that are willing to deep dive and go there. So thank you so much.
Woo! Come on, let's go.
Tomorrow. Guys.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, brothers. Thank you all, brothers, and you, Elysia.